The morning sun cast long shadows across Kepler Station as 5 human cadets walked toward Training Ground 7. Their boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Around them, alien students from 12 different worlds hurried to their own classes. Some had blue skin, others had 4 arms, and a few floated instead of walking. But the humans paid little attention to the strange sights. After 2 years at the Galactic Military Academy, they had grown used to it. Hyun-Woo Kim led the group. He was tall for a human, with serious dark eyes and short black hair. As squad leader, he carried the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Behind him walked So-Min Park, their communications expert. She was smaller than the others but had the quickest mind. Her fingers often moved as if she was typing on invisible keyboards. Dae-Ho Lee came next, carrying the heavy weapons pack. Despite his large frame and strong arms, he spoke softly and smiled often. Ji-Young Choi bounced on her feet as she walked. She was their pilot, always ready to fly anything with engines. Last was Woo Jin Han, their tech specialist. His family had served in Earth's military for generations, and he carried that pride with him. Another training exercise, Ji-Young said, grinning. I hope they give us something challenging this time. Be careful what you wish for, Hyun-Woo replied, but he smiled too. The previous exercises had been too easy. The AI opponents followed. Predictable patterns, and the simulated enemies always made the same mistakes. They entered Training Ground 7, a massive chamber that could create any battlefield using holographic technology. The walls disappeared, replaced by rocky hills under a red sky. 2 moons hung in the artificial heavens. The air smelled of dust and metal. Instructor Velthar, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms, stood waiting for them. Like most of the teaching staff, he came from a species that had joined the Galactic Defense Alliance centuries ago. He looked at the humans with the patient expression teachers used for slow students. Today's exercise is reconnaissance and defense, Velthar said in his deep voice. Enemy forces will attempt to capture this position. Your job is to gather information about their numbers and plans, then hold them off until reinforcements arrive. Hyun-Woo nodded. What kind of enemies, sir? Standard Terran simulation protocols, the instructor replied. Think of them as generic raiders. They want the supplies stored in this base. Stop them. He handed Hyun-Woo a datapad with their equipment, a list. You have 4 hours, begin when ready. The instructor left the training ground. The heavy door sealed shut with a deep hum. The 5 humans were alone in their artificial world. Same old setup, So-Min said, checking her communication gear. At least the landscape is different this time. Dae-Ho unpacked his weapons, examining each piece carefully. The equipment looked standard, nothing too exciting. Maybe we can make it exciting, Ji-Young suggested. She was already eyeing a maintenance drone in the corner. What if we use some of these support vehicles? Let's stick to the mission parameters. First, Hyun-Woo said, we can get creative if we need to. He looked around the base. It was a simple structure with supply containers, communication equipment, and basic defenses. Hills surrounded them on 3 sides, offering good cover for approaching enemies. Woo Jin connected his tablet to the base's computer system. Network access is normal. I can monitor all the sensors from here. He paused, frowning at his screen. That's odd. The system is showing some unusual network traffic. Probably just test data, So-Min said. She was setting up her radio equipment. These simulations always have weird background processes running. What they didn't know was that far above them, in the space around Kepler Station, something was going wrong. The Academy's quantum communication array had developed a fault. Instead of connecting to the training simulation's AI controllers, it was reaching out across space to a real military frequency. 3 star systems away, Commander Tekvar of the Velkari Imperial Fleet received an unusual signal. His ship's computers detected what appeared to be a new human military installation. The readings showed energy signatures consistent with weapons and defensive systems. Curious, Tekvar said to his second-in-command. Intelligence reported, no human bases in this sector. Perhaps it's a secret facility, his officer suggested. The humans are still new to galactic politics. They might be trying to establish hidden outposts. Thekvar considered this. The Velkari Empire had been testing Alliance defenses for months, looking for weaknesses. A secret human base would be an interesting target. Prepare a reconnaissance force. 500 warriors should be sufficient to investigate. Back on the training ground, the human cadets took their positions. Hyunwoo placed Somin and Woo Jin in the base's command center. Daeho set up heavy weapons on the highest wall. Ji-young prepared to use the base's small scout vehicle for reconnaissance. Remember, Hyunwoo said over their radio channel, gather information first. We need to know what we're facing before we start shooting. Contact, Somin announced suddenly. Multiple signals approaching from the North Hills. Hyunwoo raised his binoculars. Through the rocky terrain he could see movement. But something was different about these enemies. They moved with more precision than the usual training AIs. Their formation was complex, almost artistic in its coordination. They're good, he said with admiration. Much better than the last simulation. Ji-young started her scout vehicle and drove toward the edge of their perimeter. Through her vehicle's cameras, she got a closer look at the approaching forces. What she saw made her whistle softly. These guys have some impressive gear, she reported. And they're not using standard tactics. This is going to be fun. What she was actually seeing were real Velkari warriors, equipped with advanced weapons and armor. They had detected the human base and were approaching with the caution of experienced soldiers. They expected to find a military installation defended by trained Alliance forces. Instead, they were about to encounter 5 students who thought they were playing a game. Woo Jin's instruments detected the first probe signals as the Velkari forces tested the base's defenses. They're scanning us, he reported, trying to figure out our capabilities. Let them look, Hyunwoo decided. We'll learn from their approach patterns. Commander Thekvar studied the readings his scouts provided. The human base appeared to have minimal defenses and only a few occupants, but something felt wrong. The energy signatures were inconsistent and the defensive positions seemed almost random. Perhaps it's a trap, his tactical officer suggested. Perhaps, Thekvar agreed. Or perhaps these humans are more clever than we thought. Proceed with the attack but stay alert for surprises. On the training ground, Hyunwoo watched the enemy forces divide into 3 groups. It was a sophisticated maneuver, designed to attack from multiple directions while keeping reserves in case of counterattack. Impressive, he said to his team. They're treating this like a real battle. Somin was monitoring radio frequencies, trying to intercept enemy communications. What she heard confused her. The signals were heavily encrypted and used protocols she didn't recognize from any training program. Their communications are really advanced, she reported. I can barely detect them, let alone decode them. The first shots came from the northern hills. Energy bolts struck the base's outer walls, leaving scorch marks on the metal. The impacts felt more intense than usual training weapons. They're really committed to this simulation, Daeho observed, returning fire with his heavy weapon. The effects are incredibly realistic. As the battle began in earnest, neither side realized they were fighting a real engagement. The humans thought they faced the most advanced training program ever created. The Velkari believed they were testing themselves against a mysterious human military doctrine. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change everything both sides thought they knew about warfare. The battle for what would become known as the Academy War had begun. The energy bolts came faster now, lighting up the artificial red sky with bright flashes. Hyunwoo crouched behind the base's main wall, watching the enemy forces advance with growing excitement. These opponents moved like nothing he had seen in 2 years of training. They're using real military tactics, he said into his radio. Look how they coordinate their movements. This is amazing programming. 300 meters away, Commander Thekvar studied the human position through his tactical display. His warriors had been firing for 10 minutes, but the defenders showed no signs of panic or retreat. Instead, they seemed to be analyzing his forces with curious interest. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're detecting unusual radio chatter from the human position. They're discussing our tactics like they're taking notes. Taking notes? Thekvar's 4 eyes narrowed. What kind of military force takes notes during combat? So Min was indeed taking notes, recording everything she observed about the enemies, communication patterns and coordination methods. Their signal discipline is perfect, she told her teammates. I've never seen training AIs this sophisticated. Wu Jin had connected his tablet to the base's sensor array, trying to get better readings on their attackers. The data confused him. These energy signatures are way more complex than standard training equipment, and the power levels are off the charts. Maybe they upgraded the simulation systems, Ji Young suggested. She had moved her scout vehicle to the eastern side of the base, where she could observe the enemy's flanking movement. Whatever they're using, it's incredibly realistic. Dae Ho lined up his heavy weapon and fired at the nearest group of attackers. His shot struck their cover, sending up a shower of real rock and debris. Even the environmental effects are perfect. You can actually smell the burned stone. What Dae Ho was smelling was real burned stone, because his weapon had just destroyed real cover protecting real Velkari warriors. 2 of them were injured by flying fragments, something that shocked them more than the actual wounds. In centuries of warfare, they had never faced opponents who seemed so casual about causing harm. These humans fight without honor. 1 wounded, Velkari warrior complained to his squad leader. They show no respect for the dignity of combat. The squad leader, a veteran of 40 battles, shook his head in confusion. I don't understand their strategy. They fight like children playing games, but their weapons are deadly serious. Hyunwoo was thinking the same thing from his perspective. The enemy's weapons were more powerful than usual, and their tactics were incredibly advanced, but they moved with a strange hesitation. It was as if they expected different responses from the human defenders. They keep pausing, he observed, like they're waiting for us to do something specific. What if we do something unexpected instead? So Min grinned. I like the way you think. What did you have in mind? Standard doctrine says we should hold our positions and wait for reinforcements, Hyunwoo replied. What if we do the opposite? What if we attack them? Ji Young perked up in her scout vehicle. Now you're talking my language. Want me to make some noise? Do it. Ji Young gunned her vehicle's engine and drove straight toward the nearest enemy position. The small, fast machine wasn't designed for combat, but she had noticed it carried industrial cutting tools for maintenance work. As she approached the surprised Velkari warriors, she activated the cutting laser and sliced through their cover like it was paper. The Velkari squad scattered in complete confusion. They had never encountered a maintenance vehicle used as a weapon before. Their tactical computers had no protocols for this kind of attack. What is that thing? Demanded their squad leader. It appears to be a construction vehicle, his tactical officer replied, sounding bewildered. But they're using it like a fighter craft. Construction vehicles don't have weapons. This one does now. Back at the base, Wu Jin was having fun with the enemy's scanning attempts. Every time their sensors tried to map the human defenses, he fed false information back through the network. Soon, the Velkari computers thought they were facing twice as many defenders as actually existed. Their sensors keep showing different readings, reported the Velkari technical specialist. First they detect 5 humans, then 10, then 15. Either their technology is malfunctioning or they have cloaking systems we don't understand. Commander Thekvar studied the confusing reports. Nothing about this engagement made sense. The human base appeared lightly defended, but his forces couldn't make progress against it. The defenders used equipment in ways that violated every military manual he had ever read. Sir, his second-in-command said carefully, perhaps we should request additional forces. Additional forces? Thekvar couldn't believe what he was hearing. We have 500 elite warriors against a handful of humans. We should have won this engagement in the first hour. Yes, sir. But these humans don't fight the way our intelligence reports suggested they would. On the human side, similar confusion was growing. So-Min had finally managed to decode some of the enemy communications, and what she heard made her frown. Something's weird, she told Hyunwoo over the radio. They're talking about casualties, real casualties, and they're requesting medical support. Medical support in a training exercise? Hyunwoo considered this. Maybe they're testing new emergency response procedures too. Daeho had been listening to the enemy radio chatter through Soman's equipment. They sound really stressed for training AIs, like genuinely worried about something. The realism is incredible, Wu Jin agreed. They've programmed genuine emotional responses into the simulation. What they didn't realize was that they were hearing genuine emotional responses from real soldiers who were becoming increasingly demoralized by the strange battle they found themselves fighting. Ji Young had returned from her successful assault, grinning with satisfaction. That was amazing. They had no idea how to respond to a maintenance vehicle attack. Their whole formation fell apart. Try it again, but differently this time, Hyun-woo suggested. Keep them guessing. For her second sortie, Ji Young approached from a different angle and used the vehicle's crane arm to physically pick up pieces of enemy equipment and carry them away. The Valkyrie warriors could only watch in stunned silence as their communication relay was stolen by what appeared to be a human construction. Worker. This is madness, one of them said. How are we supposed to fight enemies who don't follow any logical military doctrine? His sergeant, a scarred veteran of many campaigns, shook his head slowly. I don't think they are following doctrine at all. I think they're just making it up as they go along. But that's impossible. No military force operates without doctrine. These humans do. Back at the Academy's command center, senior instructors were beginning to notice unusual readings from Training Ground 7. The power consumption was far higher than normal, and the quantum communication array was showing activity it shouldn't have during a simple training exercise. Should we check on the cadets? Asked Assistant Instructor Mordan, a blue-skinned academic from the Altair system. Chief Instructor Velthar looked at his displays thoughtfully. The exercise is scheduled to run for 4 hours. They still have 2 hours remaining. Perhaps the human students are simply being more energetic than usual. The energy readings suggest they're using equipment beyond their authorization level. Humans often push boundaries. It's part of their learning process. We'll review the recordings afterward and adjust their training accordingly. What Velthar didn't know was that the recordings were no longer just capturing a training exercise. They were documenting first contact between human military thinking and Valkyrie warrior culture, and neither side was winning in the way they expected. The battle continued with increasing intensity. The Valkyrie forces, frustrated by their inability to predict human actions, began using heavier weapons. The humans, thrilled by the challenge, responded with even more creative tactics. So Min discovered she could hack into the enemy's communication network and play random music during their tactical discussions. Wu Jin figured out how to make the base's maintenance systems look like advanced defensive weapons on enemy sensors. Daeho started using training equipment as improvised artillery. Each human innovation created new confusion among the Valkyrie forces. They had trained for decades to fight opponents who followed established military principles. They had no experience dealing with enemies who treated warfare like a creative problem-solving exercise. As the second hour of combat ended, both sides had reached the same conclusion, though for different reasons. This was unlike any battle either had ever experienced, and it was far from over. The third hour of combat brought new surprises for both sides. Commander Thekvar stood in his mobile command post, staring at reports that made no sense. His 500 elite warriors were being held off by 5 humans using tactics that violated every principle of military science. Sir, his tactical officer said nervously, the humans have just done something unprecedented. What now? They're using their waste disposal system as a weapon. They've somehow pressurized the sewage lines and are launching refuse at our positions. Thekvar closed his 4 eyes and tried to maintain his composure. They're shooting garbage. At us? Yes, sir. Very effectively, sir. Squad 7 reports their communication equipment has been damaged by flying toilet facilities. This latest innovation came from Wu Jin, who had discovered that the base's maintenance systems included high-pressure waste disposal. With some creative rewiring, he had turned the entire plumbing system into an improvised artillery network. It's brilliant, Hyun-woo said, watching enemy soldiers dive for cover as bathroom fixtures flew through the air. They'll never expect us to use infrastructure as ammunition. I feel a little bad about it, Daeho admitted, loading more plumbing supplies into their improvised launcher, but it's incredibly effective. Ji Young had escalated her vehicle operations as well. She had discovered that the training ground contained multiple maintenance drones, each designed for different tasks. By linking their control systems together, she had created a small swarm of flying maintenance equipment that confused enemy sensors and provided excellent reconnaissance. "I've got visual on their command post," she reported, watching through the cameras of 6 different drones. "They look really frustrated." "Good," So-Min replied. She had been busy with her own project, using the base's holographic systems to create false positions and phantom units. To Velkari sensors, the human base now appeared to be defended by 50 soldiers instead of 5. The Velkari forces were indeed frustrated, but more than that, they were beginning to panic. Nothing in their military training had prepared them for enemies who used bathroom equipment as weapons and cleaning drones as fighters. "Request immediate reinforcements," Commander Thekvar ordered. "Double our forces." "Sir, that would mean committing 1,000 warriors to capture one small outpost. These are not ordinary opponents. Send the request." High above the planet, the Velkari fleet received Thekvar's request with shock. 1,000 elite warriors to capture a human base? Either the commander had lost his mind, or something extraordinary was happening on the surface. "Perhaps we should investigate," suggested Fleet Admiral Morketh. "If the humans have developed new military capabilities, we need to understand them." Meanwhile, the Academy's automated systems were responding to the escalating battle in their own way. Designed to provide educational challenges, the computers detected that the cadets were performing beyond expected parameters. In response, they began unlocking additional equipment and resources. "Hey," Wu Jin said, looking at his access permissions. "The system just gave me administrative privileges to the entire base network." "Same here," So-Min added. "I can access communication arrays I didn't even know existed." "The training system must be adapting to our performance," Hyun-Woo concluded. "It's giving us more tools because we're handling the challenge so well." What was actually happening was that the Academy's artificial intelligence was trying to maintain training balance. Detecting that the enemy forces were much stronger than anticipated, it was providing additional resources to keep the exercise challenging rather than impossible. The newly available equipment included advanced communication, systems that So-Min immediately put to creative use. She began broadcasting false messages on enemy frequencies, claiming that the human base was actually a trap designed to test Velkari tactical flexibility. "Attention Velkari forces," her fake message said. "This is Admiral Park of the Human Strategic Command. Your performance in this training exercise has been adequate, but we expected better tactical adaptation from elite warriors." The message reached Commander Thekvar just as he was planning his next assault. "Training exercise?" he said in confusion. "What training exercise?" "Perhaps the humans think this is a war game," his communications officer suggested. "War game or not, my warriors are taking real casualties. But sir, if they think it's just training, that would explain their unusual behavior. They're experimenting with unconventional tactics because they believe there are no real consequences." This realization sent a chill through the Velkari command structure. If the humans were fighting casually, as if in training, and still holding off 500 elite warriors, what could they do if they fought seriously? The thought was terrifying. Back at the human base, the 5 cadets were having the time of their lives. Every new challenge was met with innovative solutions that surprised even themselves. "I've figured out how to turn the lights into weapons," Ji Young announced. She had discovered that the base's illumination system could be overloaded to create blinding flashes that disrupted enemy vision and sensors. "The cafeteria equipment makes excellent shields," Daeho added. He had been using food preparation surfaces as mobile cover, and their reflective properties were confusing enemy targeting systems. "I think I can hack their vehicles," Wu Jin said excitedly. He had been analyzing captured Velkari communication protocols and believed he could access their transportation systems. "Do it," Hyun-Woo encouraged. "Keep them off balance." Within minutes, Wu Jin had succeeded in confusing the guidance systems of several Velkari transport craft. The vehicles began driving in random directions, carrying surprised warriors away from the battle instead of toward it. Commander Thekvar watched his carefully planned assault dissolve into chaos as his own vehicles betrayed him. How are they doing this? He demanded. Unknown, sir. Their technical capabilities appear to exceed our intelligence estimates by several orders of magnitude. 5 humans with technical capabilities that exceed our estimates? That's impossible. Yes, sir, but it's happening anyway. The situation grew even more confusing when the Velkari reinforcements arrived. Fleet Admiral Morketh had sent an additional 1,000 warriors, but as they approached the battlefield, they encountered something unprecedented in galactic military history. The human base was broadcasting music. Not military communications, not propaganda, not psychological warfare. Just music. Happy, cheerful human music that made the approaching Velkari warriors feel strangely uncomfortable. What is the purpose of this audio transmission? Admiral Morketh asked his staff. Unknown, sir. Analysis suggests it serves no tactical function. Then why are they doing it? Nobody had an answer. The music was Somin's idea, inspired by her discovery that human entertainment seemed to confuse alien listeners. She had connected her personal music collection to the base's external communication system, creating what she thought was an innovative form of psychological warfare. To the Velkari, who had never encountered human music before, the sounds were deeply unsettling. Their military computers tried to analyze the audio for hidden meanings or coded messages, but found only incomprehensible patterns of rhythm and melody. It might be a new form of sonic weapon, suggested one analyst. Or a communication protocol we don't understand, added another. Or they might just be celebrating, said a third. Though this possibility was too disturbing for anyone to take seriously. As afternoon turned toward evening, both sides were exhausted, confused, and running low on conventional options. The humans had held their position through 4 hours of continuous combat, using tactics that made no sense to their opponents. The Velkari had thrown 1,500 elite warriors at a single small outpost and failed to capture it. Their reputation as the galaxy's premier military force was crumbling with every passing minute. And still, neither side realized they were fighting a real battle instead of an elaborate training exercise. The Academy's senior staff were finally beginning to suspect something was wrong. The power consumption from Training Ground 7 had exceeded all safety limits, and they were detecting weapon signatures that shouldn't exist in any simulation. Perhaps we should investigate, Chief Instructor Velthar suggested. The exercise still has 30 minutes remaining, his assistant replied. Surely we can wait until the scheduled conclusion. Yes, Velthar agreed. What harm could 30 more minutes cause? In the history of famous last words, this would rank among the most memorable. The 4th hour of combat brought a new level of desperation to both sides. Commander Thekvar had committed his elite guard, the finest warriors in the Velkari Empire, but even they struggled against opponents who seemed to rewrite the rules of warfare with every engagement. Sir, his aide reported with barely controlled panic, the humans have begun using their dining utensils as projectile weapons. Thekvar looked through his observation scope to see Deho launching forks and knives from an improvised catapult, made from exercise equipment. The utensils weren't particularly dangerous, but they were coated with some kind of slippery substance that made Velkari warriors lose their footing. What is that coating? Thekvar asked. Analysis suggests it's cooking oil, sir, from their food preparation area. They're using cooking oil as a tactical weapon? It appears so, sir, very effectively. The oil-coated utensils were Wu Jin's latest innovation. He had discovered that the base's kitchen contained industrial-grade cooking supplies and had created a slippery trap system that turned the battlefield into an obstacle course for advancing enemies. This is working better than I expected, Wu Jin told his teammates. Their heavy armor actually makes the slipping worse because they can't balance properly. Hyunwoo watched through his binoculars as elite Velkari warriors slid helplessly down hills they had been trying to climb. I'm starting to think this training program is designed to test our creativity more than our combat skills. Either that, or the Academy has a really twisted sense of humor, Ji Young added. She was currently flying 3 maintenance drones in formation, using their industrial welding equipment to seal enemy vehicles shut, trapping their occupants inside until they could cut their way out. Somin had discovered something even more disturbing in the enemy communications she was monitoring. Guys, she said, her voice uncertain for the first time. "I'm picking up medical evacuation requests. Real ones, with injury reports and casualty numbers." "Casualty numbers?" Daeho frowned. "Training exercises don't have casualties." "Maybe they're testing medical response procedures too," Hyunwoo suggested, but he was starting to feel uneasy. The enemy's radio chatter sounded genuinely distressed, not like the programmed responses of training AIs. The unease grew when Woojin intercepted a message that made his blood run cold. "Emergency medical transport requested for Commander Kelthor, severe plasma burns to thoracic region. Estimated recovery time 6 weeks. 6 weeks? So-min stared at her equipment. For a training injury? The truth was beginning to penetrate. Their consciousness, but it was too incredible to accept immediately. They had been fighting for 4 hours, using every creative trick they could think of, against what they believed were simulated opponents. The possibility that their enemies were real seemed impossible, but the evidence was mounting. Commander Tekvar was having his own moment of terrible realization. He had managed to capture one of the human communication signals and had it translated. What he heard shattered his understanding of warfare. "Did you see that move with the kitchen equipment?" one human voice said cheerfully. "I never would have thought of using a pasta maker as a defensive weapon." "The best part was when they tried to climb over it," another voice replied, clearly amused. "Who knew noodles could be tactical?" "These training programs keep getting more creative," a third voice added. "I wonder what they'll come up with next." Training programs. The humans thought this was a training program. Tekvar felt something he had never experienced in 40 years of military service. Complete philosophical confusion. His 1,500 elite warriors were being held off by 5 students who thought they were playing a game. "Sir," his second-in-command said quietly, "what are your orders?" Tekvar didn't know. How do you fight enemies who don't realize they're your enemies? How do you defeat opponents who treat deadly combat as an interesting puzzle? The moral implications were staggering. If the humans thought this was training, then they were not truly his enemies at all. They were students, practicing their skills in what they believed was a safe environment. But they were students who had just held off the finest military force in the Velkari Empire for 4 hours. The Academy's automated systems chose this moment to provide the human cadets with their final upgrade. Detecting that the training exercise had reached maximum difficulty, the computers unlocked the base's emergency protocols, giving the 5 cadets access to equipment they had never seen before. "Whoa," Ji-young said, looking at her newly expanded vehicle controls. "They just gave me access to construction mechs. I can control the entire base's infrastructure now," Woojin reported, his eyes wide as new options appeared on his screens. "The holographic projectors just got a massive upgrade," So-min added. "I can create illusions across the entire battlefield now." Hyunwoo felt a chill of real fear. "Guys, I think we need to consider the possibility that something has gone very wrong here." "What do you mean?" Daeho asked, though his expression suggested he was thinking the same thing. "Look around us. Look at the damage we've caused. Look at the complexity of the opposition. This doesn't feel like any training program I've ever experienced." Before anyone could respond, Ji-young's enhanced sensors detected something that made the situation clear. Multiple spacecraft approaching. From orbit, real spacecraft with real weapon signatures. The Fleet Admiral's reinforcements had arrived. Admiral Morketh brought the full power of the Velkari Imperial Fleet, 10 heavy cruisers, 30 assault ships, and 5,000 of the Empire's finest warriors. It was enough firepower to level a small city. It was also massive overkill for capturing a single human outpost defended by 5 cadets. But Admiral Morketh didn't know they were cadets. All he knew was that this human facility had held off the Empire's ground forces for 4 hours, using tactics that defied every principle of military science. "Prepare for orbital bombardment," he ordered. "If we cannot take this position by ground assault, we will destroy it from space." In Training Ground 7, alarms began sounding as the Academy systems detected incoming weapons fire from orbit. Real weapons fire, not simulated energy beams. "That's not part of any training program," Hyunwoo said, his voice tight with sudden fear. The 5 cadets looked at each other with growing horror as the truth finally became undeniable. They had been fighting real enemies in a real battle. The Velkhari warriors they had been harassing with kitchen utensils and bathroom fixtures were actual soldiers. The casualties So-Min had been hearing about were genuine injuries. "Oh no," So-Min whispered. "What have we done?" Outside their base, Commander Thekvar was experiencing his own moment of revelation. Through his enhanced observation equipment, he had finally gotten a clear look at the human defenders. They were young, very young, children by Velkhari standards, and they were terrified. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He had been fighting children, students, cadets who thought they were participating in a training exercise. These weren't enemy soldiers. They were just kids trying to pass a class. Kids who had accidentally held off the Velkhari Imperial fleet for 4 hours. The magnitude of what this meant for galactic military doctrine was staggering. If human military students could fight his elite forces to a standstill while thinking it was just practice, what could trained human soldiers accomplish? "Sir," his communications officer reported, "Admiral Morketh is requesting target confirmation for orbital bombardment." Thekvar looked at the human base, where 5 frightened young people were probably just beginning to understand how much danger they were in. The orbital bombardment would kill them all in seconds. He had spent his entire life as a warrior, fighting enemies across the galaxy. But these were not enemies. They were students who had gotten caught up in a terrible misunderstanding. Misunderstanding that had revealed something profound about human military potential. "Sir?" the communications officer repeated. "Target confirmation?" Thekvar made a decision that would be remembered in military history for centuries to come. "Signal Admiral Morketh," he said slowly. "Tell him to hold all fire. I'm going to speak with the humans directly. Sir, you heard me. Open a communication channel. It's time to end this properly." In the human base, the 5 cadets huddled together as reality crashed down around them. They had started the day as students in a training exercise. Now they were at the center of an interstellar incident that could start a war. "What do we do now?" Ji Young asked, her usual cheerfulness replaced by fear. Before anyone could answer, their communication system crackled to life with an incoming signal. A deep alien voice spoke in careful, accented standard Galactic. "Human defenders. This is Commander Thekvar of the Velkhari Imperial Fleet. I believe we need to talk." The communication channel filled with tense silence. Inside the human base, 5 cadets stared at their radio equipment as if it might explode. Outside, Commander Thekvar waited for a response while his 1,500 warriors watched in confusion. Yun Wu found his voice first. "This is Cadet Squad Leader Kim Hyun-woo of the Galactic Military Academy," he said formally, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. "Are you saying this isn't a training exercise?" "No, Cadet Kim. This is not a training exercise. My forces detected what we believed to be a secret military installation and moved to investigate. We had no knowledge that you were students." So-Min grabbed Hyun-woo's arm. "Cadet. He called you cadet. Real military officers don't call academy students by their training ranks unless they're being respectful." Wu Jin was checking his sensors with shaking hands. "The orbital ships are real. Those energy signatures match Velkhari Imperial Fleet standards. This is actually happening." Daeho set down his improvised weapon and rubbed his face. "We've been fighting the Velkhari Empire's actual military for 4 hours, using kitchen utensils. And winning," Ji Young added weakly. "Don't forget we were winning." Commander Thekvar continued speaking, his voice carrying a strange mixture of respect and disbelief. "Cadet Kim, before we proceed, I must ask, how long have you and your fellow cadets been in training?" 2 years, sir. We're third-year students." "Third-year students," Thekvar repeated, and his warriors could hear the wonder in his voice. "You have held off 1,500 of the Empire's finest warriors for 4 hours, and you are third-year students. We thought they were really advanced training AIs," Hyun-woo explained. "Your forces used tactics we'd never seen before. It was the most challenging exercise we'd ever experienced." "Exercise?" Thekvar said the word like he was tasting something bitter. "You treated this as an exercise." High above them, Fleet Admiral Morketh listened to the conversation with growing amazement. They thought it was training? He asked his staff. It appears so, sir, which means they were not fighting at full capability. Not fighting at full capability. The Admiral pondered this. If human students fighting casually can hold off our ground forces, what could their actual military accomplish? The implications were staggering. Every calculation the Velkhari Empire had made about human military strength would need to be revised. Completely revised. On the planet's surface, Academy instructors were finally arriving at Training Ground 7. Chief Instructor Velthar rushed into the command center, followed by a dozen staff members and emergency medical teams. Cadets, Velthar's voice came over the radio. Maintain your positions, do not engage with the orbital forces, we're working on diplomatic solutions. Instructor Velthar? Hyun-woo sounded relieved to hear a familiar voice. What's happening? What's happening? Velthar replied grimly. Is that a quantum communication fault turned your training exercise into first contact with the Velkhari Imperial Fleet. The entire Galactic Defense Alliance is mobilizing to prevent an interstellar incident. Commander Thekvar interrupted the transmission. Instructor Velthar, this is Commander Thekvar. I formally request permission to speak with your cadets directly, under diplomatic immunity protocols. Commander, with respect, these are students. They're not authorized to conduct diplomatic negotiations. With respect, Instructor, these students just taught my forces more about warfare than we learned in the previous century. I believe they have earned the right to speak for themselves. Velthar considered this. The situation was unprecedented in galactic military history. Standard protocols didn't cover what to do when students accidentally started an interstellar crisis. Very well, Commander. You may approach under flag of truce. 20 minutes later, Commander Thekvar walked across the battlefield toward the human base. He was an impressive figure, nearly 3 meters tall with 4 muscular arms and scaled gray skin. Behind him, his warriors maintained respectful positions, weapons lowered but ready. The 5 human cadets stood at their base's entrance, looking very young and very nervous. They wore standard academy uniforms that were now dirty and torn from hours of combat. None of them looked like the tactical geniuses who had confounded the Velkhari Empire's military doctrine. Thekvar approached slowly, his 4 hands empty and visible. Cadets, he said formally. I am Commander Thekvar of the Velkhari Imperial Fleet. Sir, Hyun-woo replied, attempting a proper military salute. We're sorry about the misunderstanding. If we had known this was real, we would have handled things differently. Differently how? Hyun-woo looked at his teammates, then back at the towering alien commander. We probably would have surrendered immediately, sir. We're just students. We don't have any business fighting the Imperial Fleet. You would have surrendered, Thekvar repeated thoughtfully, even though you were winning? Winning? Somin looked confused. Sir, we were just trying to survive what we thought was a really hard test. Trying to survive, Thekvar said. Not trying to defeat us. Not trying to prove your superiority. Just trying to survive. Yes, sir. We kept hoping the exercise would end before we ran out of ideas. Thekvar was quiet for a long moment, studying the 5 young humans. Finally, he spoke. In 40 years of military service, I have never encountered opponents who fought with such creativity and resourcefulness. My warriors are demoralized. My tactical computers cannot predict your methods. My superiors are questioning everything they thought they knew about warfare. We're really sorry about that, sir, Daeho said earnestly. We didn't mean to cause any trouble. Trouble? Thekvar's alien features shifted in what might have been amusement. Young warriors, you have not caused trouble. You have caused a revolution. The commander activated his personal communicator. Fleet Admiral Morketh, this is Commander Thekvar. I formally request to surrender my forces to the human cadets. The communication channel erupted with confused voices from multiple sources. Academy instructors, Velkhari officers, and Alliance officials all spoke at once, creating a chaos of diplomatic protests and military confusion. Sir, Hyun-woo said hesitantly, You can't surrender to us. We're just students. Cadet Kim, in my culture, when a warrior meets opponents of superior skill and creativity, honor demands acknowledgement of that superiority. You have demonstrated tactical abilities that exceed those of my finest officers. But we were just making stuff up as we went along, Ji Young protested. Exactly, Tekvar replied. That is what made you unbeatable. We train our warriors to follow doctrine, to execute predetermined strategies, to fight according to established principles. You ignored all of that. You fought like warfare was a creative art form. Fleet Admiral Morketh's voice cut through the communications chaos. Commander Tekvar, return to your ship immediately. You are not authorized to surrender Imperial forces to anyone, especially not to Academy students. Admiral, Tekvar replied calmly. These Academy students have held off our combined forces for 4 hours using improvised tactics and maintenance equipment. If they were trained soldiers fighting at full capacity, they could probably conquer half the galaxy. That's ridiculous. Is it? Admiral, I invite you to review the battle recordings. These humans used bathroom fixtures as weapons. They turned their sewage system into artillery. They made our elite guards slip and fall using cooking oil. And it worked. Against 1,500 of our finest warriors, it worked. In the silence that followed, everyone present began to grasp the true significance of what had happened. The Velkhari Empire prided itself on military excellence, on tactical superiority, on the ability to defeat any opponent through superior strategy and execution. 5 human college students had made them look like amateurs. The formal surrender ceremony took place 2 hours later, with representatives from 6 different galactic governments present to witness it. Commander Tekvar, in full-dress uniform, formally acknowledged the tactical superiority of the human cadets and requested to learn from their methods. The 5 students stood at attention in their dirty academy uniforms, still hardly believing what was happening. Hyun-woo accepted the surrender on behalf of humanity, reading carefully from notes provided by panicking diplomatic officials. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, and its impact was immediate. Every military force in known space began reassessing their tactical doctrines. The concept of human unpredictability became a studied military advantage. Applications to the Galactic Military Academy from human students increased by 3,000% within a month. Other species began requesting human tactical advisors for their military units. The Academy itself became a center of interstellar military research, but for Hyun-woo, So-min, Dae-ho, Ji Young, and Woo Jin, the most important change was personal. They had started the day as ordinary students trying to pass a routine training exercise. They ended it as accidental heroes who had changed the nature of galactic warfare. Years later, when they had become legendary figures in military circles, they would still gather occasionally to share meals and reminisce. They would laugh about the day they fought the Velkhari Empire with kitchen utensils and won.